Hello, welcome to the Interface Media training site. In this tutorial, we'll be looking at how you can create a custom wallpaper for your desktop in Adobe Photoshop. So the good thing with this tutorial is we won't be using any third-party plugins. We'll be using Photoshop's generic features. So as long as you have the software and you have got a photograph, then you should be good to go. So let's get started. Now, the first thing that you need to do when you're creating a project like this is to get the dimensions straight. So I'm designing for my desktop, and it's 1920 by 1080 pixels. So to set it up, you need to go to the file menu and then select new. Alternatively, you can just press Ctrl N on your keyboard. So I took the liberty of creating a preset so that we don't waste time with the setup. And this is my preset. So you see the width is 1920 and the height is 1080. The resolution is 300 pixels per centimeter, and since this is for the desktop, we're using the RGB color mode and 16 bits for the color depth. So the background has to be transparent, and this is very important, and you'll see later on as we proceed with the tutorial. So once you have all this selected, then you can just create the project. Now we have a project in place, and note that it is transparent. So at this point, you need to load the image that you'll be working with. So we'll go back to the file menu, and this time we'll select place embedded. So we'll select the photograph and place it into Photoshop. So this is a raw file, and you get this camera raw menu. We won't make any changes at this point, so just accept the image as it is. Now, since this is a raw file, it will load as a smart object, and we'll need to rasterize this image before we start making any changes to it. So first, let's accept the transformation, and then we can rasterize the layer, and we'll right click and then rasterize layer. Okay. After we have loaded the image, we need to remove the background. We need to get rid of all this, the background and all the colors there. So what I'm going to do is grab the quick selection tool and make sure that it's set to add, and I'll just select the background. Just capture as much of it as possible, and we'll just add the little shadows here and there. Alright, now we have the background selected. So at this point, we can just delete the background. So right now we will have to select the subject and start making some of the changes to that. Now I already have the background selected. All I need to do right now is to select the inverse. So I'll just right click like I already did, and then select inverse. Okay, so with the subject selected, we need to change it into the black and white thing that we saw in the final tutorial. So what I'm going to do is go to the image menu and then select threshold. Okay, so with the threshold selected, we need to reduce the threshold level, and let's turn it down to something around 40%. See how that goes. Yeah, 40 is okay. The idea is to change this into a series of highlights and midtones and shadows. So with this done, I think 31 should be okay. Oh no, that's just too much. We are losing a lot of information on the shade, so let's put it at 35. So 35 should work for our presentation. Okay, with the threshold level selected and set up the way we want them to, we can just accept those changes. So we have the black and white, but then we don't have the transparency. We can't see through this image. If we want to get the transparency, we need to copy the dark areas to another layer. So if you want to select only the dark areas, we'll have to go to the select menu and then select the color range. and we'll change this from sampled colors, we'll change this to shadows because we need the shadows. So with the shadow selected, and we can change the fuzziness to, let's say, 15, tone it down a little bit, and the range to 75. Okay, now with this selected, then we can just click OK. So we have selected the dark areas. Note that there is now a selection. The selection, the marquee, you can see the matching ants showing that we have selected some parts of the image. Now if we want to copy this to a new layer, we can just press Ctrl plus J on our keyboard, or right click and then select layer via copy. Okay, so it seems like nothing has changed. That's because the initial image is still visible. So we can toggle the visibility of this layer off to see what we have. So now you see we have the transparency, and we still have a bit of some details on the shade, and the light areas, the face, transparent. So that's what we needed, and we can proceed with that. So we don't need this layer anymore, and we can just delete it. So let's rename this to sketch art. Alright, so at this point we need to create the background. So let's create another layer, and we'll fill this with gray. So select the edit menu, fill, and then we need to select a color, and we just want a lighter shade of gray here. Okay, maybe something like alright, that should work, and click OK. So move the layer 1 below the sketch art, and now that's what we have. So let's rename this to BG for the background. Okay, so now we are getting closer to our final product, but if you notice, the background is too smooth. It looks artificial, so we need to give this a bit of texture to give it like that paper texture feel. So the best way to do that is to go to the filters menu and apply a noise filter. So what I'm going to do is go to the filters menu and then select noise. So add noise. Alright, so at this point we have this texture 17.5, and you have uniform and monochromatic standoff. It has got a bit of color. I don't need the color. What I need is for this to be black and white. So we'll switch on the monochromatic to remove the colors. Just make this as shades of gray and black and white. So we can change the amount. So this is the image with the amount at 400%, 44, and we just need that paper text. We don't want it to be so prominent, we just need a little. So maybe for this we can set it to 15. Alright, so now we have the paper texture created. Let's move on to giving this image a bit of depth. So the easiest way to do that is to apply a different clouds filter. So what I'm going to do is create another layer and give this clouds, name this to clouds, and I'll go to the filters menu, select render, and then select clouds. So now we have the cloud selected, but it has darkened the image a little bit. We just want to tone this down a little bit, and we just go to the fill menu and reduce it to maybe 35. So set this to 35%, and now you can see that it's a little bit better. Just adds a little bit of dimension to this image. Okay, so it looks like we are done with the wallpaper, but we'll need to sign it.